Oh, well.
Okay, I think we're live. Hi, my name is Carol Salva, and I'm thrilled that this is week 1 of ELL Chat _ book club. That's a hashtag if you go to Twitter, but we're on Facebook too. And this is round 6 of an amazing global book study founded by Tan Nguyen and Dr. Katie Topol. So right now we're going through the book Boosting Achievement. And I'm going to stop right there because I'm hearing somebody's feedback. Somebody doesn't have, hey, Emily, can you hear me?
We can't hear her still.
But somebody's microphone, so it's giving feedback. This is live, so that's why. Do y'all hear the feedback?
I don't
hear it.
So it's somebody. Anyway, Katie, why don't you start talking and I'll go through and mute people's microphones so we can see who it is. But I wanted to introduce Katie Topol. Dr. Topol founded the book club, and so herself.
I am Katie Topol. I am an English language development specialist in an elementary school, and I'm also an adjunct professor at Portland State University in Oregon, teaching ESOL endorsement courses. If you follow me on Twitter, you know that I'm an avid reader. I love reading. I'm reading all the time. And I love to connect with other educators about the books that I'm reading. And that's kind of how ELL Chat Book Club came about. I was, I think it just became interested in Andrea Honigfeld's book on collaboration and co-teaching. And Ton and I had connected on Twitter, and kind of one of us threw out the idea, let's have a bunch of people read this book together and talk about it. And Ton was the one who coined our hashtag, and that's kind of how our book club got started. And as Carol said, it's in round 6, which is amazing. We've read some really good books and some better than others. It seems like right now we're making some efforts to kind of revamp some of the ways we do this book club to make it really user-friendly and more engaging for participants. This is our first time trying this Google Hangout, which is just a really fun way to talk to each other in real time. Because somebody pointed out, I think it was Carlota, there's only so much you can say in a tweet. And sometimes you're trying to really say your thought and you run out of characters. So it's nice to have the opportunity to actually have conversations about this book. And it's really particularly special that Carol is one of the authors of the book. That brings a great perspective and expertise to our group. And it's been really fun to have the authors interact with us, because I don't know about y'all, but I feel like when I read teacher books, the authors are like celebrities to me. And when I get a chance to interact with them, it's crazy. When I met Geneva Gay, I was totally starstruck. And to have one of the founders of SIOP messaging me on Twitter, it's amazing. So it's been really a fun way to interact with other educators, but also interact with these, what do you call them, Carol? Edu-heroes?
Edu-heroes.
I love that. So
that's you guys there. Those are the people out in the field, right?
That's been really great, because I really crave a culture of learning and opportunities to interact with people that are as passionate as I am and who really love to read and continuously improve their knowledge base about whatever aspect of teaching. And it's been really amazing to kind of find that PLN on Twitter. I'm always now talking about Twitter, and trying to get other people to engage, because I found it to be the most rewarding professional development I can think of, because I'm choosing what I'm interested in and then finding other people that are also interested in it and want to connect about it. So it's been really fun.
And thank you for starting the book club, where, I mean, it's been phenomenal. It's been one of the best professional development opportunities I've ever had. The first rounds of the books that we've done, it's just personalizing our learning. So we can go on and on about how great the idea of a book club is online. It's so fantastic. But I'm trying to now jump to Carlota, and I muted your mic and I don't know how to unmute it. And I just want, for anybody watching out there, this should make you feel really good about technology. Just jump in. You don't have to really know what you're doing. Yay, she
can you hear me?
Herself. Yes, and I'm going to mute myself, because I'm going to try to figure out some other things over here while I listen to you. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm Carlota Holder, and I participated on hashtag VirtueEL17 on some academic language PD, which I got a lot of great feedback from. I was in California at the National SIFE conference just a few weeks ago, and I had participants coming to say like, oh, I watched your VirtueEL PD and it really helped me and it was so useful, which in turn kind of made me feel like a celebrity. I'm not sure. I think this is my 5th ELL chat book club. I don't think I participated in the first one, but this Andrea is coming to present to our state, so I'm going to try and get the state involved. And when we get her training, have the state reading her book and kind of doing an ELL chat like Indiana book club or something like that is my goal. And I've reached out to our EL specialist at the Department of Ed here in Indiana, who is on board with that. Because I told her I would try and run it the best that I can. And then thanks to Katie this summer, I decided to do my own book chat with my staff, hashtag #book chat. And I just decided.
There you are. I thought you ended the picture.
And I decided to do that just to keep my staff kind of reflecting over the summer. And we did Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain, which I love that book. That book is so good. I'm so excited to use it this year. And Twitter's not going off that great with my staff yet, but I just think it's because they're probably not friends with all of you guys to get all the awesome resources that you have to offer. And it's the first time. So I'm not giving up yet. I'm going to keep trying. I think I'm gonna have to like set them down in the fall and like show them this is all the stuff that's on Twitter and this is all the things that you can find and resources and asking questions. I mean, the other day I posted a question about co-teaching and voila, I had all from my PLN and from Andrea. So I'm an EL coordinator here in Indianapolis, and I'm on Twitter at Carlota_Holder, sharing all of the EL information that I can.
And you're a rock star about it. You're really doing quite a bit out there. I mean, I hear people, and I see so many people thanking you all the time. So we're just thrilled to have you as part of it, and thank you for the virtual. We have more than one virtual presenter here, so we'll make sure and add those links to the description, but that's just hashtag VirtueL17, amazing sessions. And so thank you guys for doing those as well. we're gonna go next to Starbucks in Waxahachie, and Vienna and her group from Waxahachie ISD, which we're super excited. They're very innovative there, and just tell us a little bit about themselves. Vienna, I think you guys need to unmute your own microphone, because I don't think I can do that. Can you? I mean, I don't know how to do that.
Okay, well, this is Vienna Armstrong, bilingual and ESL coordinator for Waxahachie ISD.
Teresa McKee, I'm a dual language pre-K teacher.
Welcome.
Olivera, Waxahachie ISD ESL.
Hi, guys.
Hi, we're super excited to be here today. We're feeling pretty tech savvy and a little tech challenged.
That's all right. I think it's so inspiring because we're making it work, right?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Okay. All right.
All right, so we're good to go. So I know you guys, yeah, you guys are sharing devices over there, but you're listening, and we'll be going down the line, so you guys can pop in. And we were talking before about a little bit of background noise, but it's not distracting when it's you guys talking. So you just unmute your microphone when you want to jump in. Okay.
Will do.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Okay. So now we're going to try Emily Francis. Emily jumped in earlier, but we could not hear her. So we're hoping we can hear you now. Emily, can you unmute your mic? Do you know how to do that? Should be up at the top. It says you're muted. There. Can we hear you? We can't hear you, Emily Francis. Is there anybody in your building that could help you with? There's something about the microphone and the Google the Google Hangout that you need to say which microphone you're using, that might be it. And so you might want to go into your control panel and pop back in. I would go out and work on that and then come back in and just start. Yeah, there you go. You can chat. She wrote, I'll try. Okay, that's fantastic. Try a few things, and whenever you just start talking and we'll be able to hear you. When you can just come in and out of the chat, retrying, okay? Okay, so you have to say bye to Emily. Okay, so we were not going to make this super formal, but since we have several people, we were thinking maybe it is a good idea to just go down through, and we just did question 1. For anybody who is not, you know what's so great, and I want to get y'all's thoughts before we get started, is that many people are connected in the chat and on Facebook that don't have the book. And I think that's fantastic, because I think we have put so many resources out there. We'll have a couple of links in the description of how you can engage without the book. And that's kind of crazy to have a book study without the book. But it's really kind of morphed into a movement. I don't know if you guys agree with that, but we're talking about a mindset and the abilities of SIFE students. This book is about students with interrupted or minimal education. I don't know. Carlota wanted to say something. Go ahead and talk about that, if you will, Carlota. Oh, you were talking about to Emily.
I was talking to Emily. Yeah, about her mic. I tried to help her out.
Okay, that's great. Y'all keep doing that. Does anybody want to talk about that? About, because we have the Padlet, and the Padlet has so many screenshots. Right now we're just in week 1, which is just the introduction and the foreword and some reflective questions about what we do in our own districts. I'm still teaching. I'm in high school, Let's Education, but I'm fascinated and I'm learning so much. We're only in day 3 about what other people are doing in their districts. So how do y'all feel about having this chat_book club, BK club, be open to everybody? What do y'all think about that?
I think it's great. I was so excited that already not even, I mean, I'm not reading ahead. I'm just reading what we're supposed to read for the week. And I had never thought of my students, because I said, I've never taught SIFE students before. And Carlota said, seriously? I didn't think I had. And then somebody pointed out that students who go back to their home country for a few months during the school year, I mean, that's interrupted schooling. And I was like, light bulb, I never thought of that. I had a little girl this year who went back to the Marshall Islands for, I don't know, 6 weeks. And she's a pretty strong student. And so I never thought of it. But truly, when I think about how often that happens when students go back to Mexico at the end of the school year or around Christmas time, there is kind of a negative attitude of the teachers, or it's they're missing so much. And while I do agree it's unfortunate that they're missing school, I'm thinking now about what are they gaining from going back to the country where their family is? Because there's obviously a backstory to that. And when you hear people popping up on Twitter saying, I haven't seen my family in X amount of years, or I was a SIFE student, it's really incredible to really think about the backstory and how, maybe my student is seeing family that she would never hasn't seen in a while. And so when I can say how inconvenient it is that she wasn't there when we did our ELPA 21 testing, or how she missed this unit or XYZ, there's a whole other side to it that's about her family and her roots and her culture. And that's really important. And I just kind of have this new perspective now of, oh, I never considered that as kind of another almost like subcategory of student that has a particular need. And, what was her need around going and then coming back and kind of getting used to her classroom again and her teacher and her peers, and what changed when she was gone. And I honestly just have never considered that before, because I'm in my classroom doing my thing. And I just think it's so much food for thought now about what she experienced when she was there, because I don't really know.
To me, that's amazing. That's a perspective that I didn't even have. I'm constantly thinking about the kids who have no education, the ones that I work with, or minimal education, and they've spent 10 years in a refugee camp with no running water, and they come in, and I'm fascinated by what they bring to our learning environments. Like, why wouldn't anybody want their child learning alongside the experiences of this kiddo? And I never even thought about, okay, so they're only gone for a little bit of our school year. That's just a different category of what we're talking about, is just some interruption of what we consider formal education, right? Who else wants to say something? Thank you for that. Who else wants to say something?
I have, I think I messaged you guys about a student that I have who's going to be experiencing interrupted schooling here in the next year. And they don't have a choice. They have to go back. That's a part of the visa process for them. And it's unfortunate. And I felt like whatever decision we made for her for the next school year, that we really needed to be mindful with the fact that she was going to be going back to her home country. And her parents are so concerned that they want to put her in school 7 days a week, which is crazy. No child wants to go to school for 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And that's just so that she could continue her education in English, because they'd have to travel somewhere on the weekend so that she could continue getting the English practice. And then during the week, she'll be in her small town, but then that's in Spanish, and the parents are trying. And it was a battle on whether or not we should hold her back. And I was like, I'm fighting this battle because she's going to be interrupted if she does come back because of the situation. And I just didn't feel like we had the good enough data or support for her to, be held back. But now I know, I feel like I'm going to have more tools in my toolbox once she comes back, anticipating, she has to be gone for at least a year in her home country before she can come back, and what that interruption might do for her.
I think that's amazing, though, your information about her parents and them being in favor of her having more schooling to try and catch up, because I think it's very easy. One, I think it proves how essential collaboration is between EL specialists and classroom teachers, so that everybody knows the story about the student. Because I think it's very easy for kind of general population of teachers to dismiss or to have the perspective that when a student goes back to their home country, it's because the parents don't care about the education that they're receiving, because it's from the perspective of the teacher of, I'm doing all this instruction and they're missing it, and therefore that's a kind of a lack of regard for what I'm doing. But then to hear that backstory of the family, that they're wanting their child to go to school 7 days a week so that she can continue in English, that is a depth of caring about education. And so it's really important to kind of get that in my district, we call that below the line information, where you kind of dig deeper and you really know what's going on with families. That's so important to know that, and to make sure that everybody knows that. A lot of our practices involve team decisions and kind of team discussions, and for everybody to know that the parents have that perspective and that regard for education, I think would make a difference between having a teacher say, oh my gosh, they don't even care, they're just leaving, or they're missing all this, versus this is what they're trying to make happen, and it's a situation that's not something they can control. These are the circumstances, and this family has to go back.
Yeah, we made a team decision this past year to change our Christmas break, because so many families would come back later, and that was because of the holiday, I think is Los Reyes. And so we changed our Christmas break for this next year so that they don't have to worry about missing school, and they can celebrate that, that holiday that they celebrate with their family in their home countries.
That's such a good example of cultural responsiveness, of thinking outside the box. Like a schedule is a schedule, but if it's not working for a large percentage of your population, you kind of have to bend and meet their needs. And a schedule change, that's brilliant. What a great way to make them feel important.
Attendance was terrible. And then, and we found out the data. Why is
Mhm.
it terrible?
Mhm.
Oh,
Mhm.
because so-and-so is not back yet. They're
Mhm.
still celebrating
Mhm.
because this holiday is happening right now.
Mhm.
I mean,
Wow.
Yeah, that is amazing. And that's, I'm floored by the fact that y'all changed your holidays, but yeah, Katie's right. And if y'all have not checked out Katie's Virtual on cultural responsiveness, her session, we definitely need to link to that, because everybody that watches it is just blown away by what we think is cultural responsiveness. We think of culture, and there's so much more to it than that.
Mhm.
And in the last book that y'all did with the neuroscience and everything, I love that I can watch your session, a 30-minute, 45-minute session, and get the cliff notes from all of these things you've read, Katie, which is fantastic. I mean,
It's interesting. It's
anyway,
interesting how that kind of, I don't know, that niche of education is not really something that the general population of teachers has in their tool belt, like the concept of what is culturally responsive. And my district has done extensive training on it, but it still remains something that's, I don't know, it's like a bonus, you know, in teacher prep programs. Cultural responsiveness is not ingrained in everything. It's like that bonus class of, well, what does this mean? And you can get a lot of information in a bonus class, but it's not,
it's an elective.
it's not something that is built into everything. And so I love, I mean, as I said in my presentation, we've got prescribed programs for everything. And that in some ways, from when I was first reading it, just goes against how to be culturally responsive, because it's a lot of, you know, you just have to play by what your students want. And so I love Zaretta Hammond's ideas because they really are applicable to anything. It doesn't matter what format of teaching you use, you can throw in her ideas easily.
I have, so as a master teacher, we use the TAP rubric. And so I'm in charge of PD and cluster. And I can't tell you how many things I have found in that book that I'm like, oh, I can apply this in this cluster on feedback, or I can apply it on this cluster on grouping students. There is so much that I have been able to use from that book and tie back to our instructional rubric and our evaluation rubric for teachers, that I'm really happy that I read it, because now otherwise I was going to have to do the research on my own, and it's like the research just fell in my lap.
Zaretta Hammond, if you ever have a chance to see her, she's fantastic. And she came to Oregon in the spring. And so I was so excited. It was a free event put on by the Oregon Education Association. And I had tweeted her that I was so excited. And when she was presenting and she started and she goes, oh, I just have to stop. Where's Katie? And I was like, oh my God.
Do you have her book? Do you have her book on hand? We should say the name of the book.
It's upstairs.
It's Culturally Responsive and the Brain.
Culturally Responsive
Zaretta
Teaching and the
Hammond.
Brain.
And the Brain. Okay. So, oh, look at Emily. Hey, Emily, can we hear you now? No, but you're adding so much value with that book. I'm so thrilled that Emily is here. Even though we can't hear you, Emily, you could chat in the chat box and I can say what you want to say. One thing, I just want to lift up Emily, because we can another time talk about how I found Emily's class. It had no idea. And she just responded to something my class put out on Twitter, if anybody wanted to play a Kahoot that we had made about ourselves. But in getting to know Emily, we found out Emily's story, and that's in our week 1 notes is, okay, here is a real life success story. Emily is one of the Fab 5 teaching channels for ELL teachers. She has done so much. She's won so many awards. She has so many accolades for what she's doing in the teaching profession. And Emily came into high school with a 6th grade education from Guatemala as a non-English speaker. And so she has on her blog was one of the best mentor texts that my kids could learn to read with this year. It was just amazing. So I just want to thank Emily for her honesty and her bravery and her story and her plugging in. She just brings so much, and she's doing our Padlet.
Yay.
For our, I know. So thank you, Emily, for being part of, and she's in the book, because even before I knew she was SIFE or had been a student with interrupted formal education, fantastic teacher with what she was doing and how we were connecting our classes globally. So later, I think it's in part 3 or part 4, maybe, I'm not sure, but her picture of her kids connecting with my students is a fantastic thing to think about of what's possible for our language learners, our newcomers, and our SIFE kiddos. So I kind of want to go over to, well, I wanted to go to Waxahachie, but I don't see Starbucks anymore. It looks like they've gone to the handheld. So they'd have to, Christy, you'd have to unmute your mic so that we could hear you. So when Waxahachie gets back, we're going to ask them. There they are. I can kind of see you guys. We'll wait till they're ready, and you guys unmute your mic, and then, you know, weigh in with however you want. You know what? Vienna Armstrong, who is there with some of her team, they are a district in North Texas, and I've presented in their district a couple of times. They're super innovative. They do a tech conference, not a tech conference, but back to school in the summer conference that maybe she'll say something about, because it's inspiring to me that before it was real fashionable to open your district's PD to other districts and have people come for like an ed camp kind of thing. They were doing that in Waxahachie. And so I came all the way up from Houston. It's like a 4 or 5 hour drive. And I will always present there whenever they ask me to, because it's inspiring what they do. Okay, I think she's back now. Can you unmute your mic though, Vienna? You have to unmute it there at the top. I think you're on Christy's.
Is that better?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay. I only got part of that because we're having technical difficulty, but thank you so much. That is so sweet. We adore you. You have so many fans here in Waxahachie. So
thank you. I can't wait to come.
You are a line item in my budget. Put it that way.
Right. So tell us about the book, though. What have y'all been doing with the book or the chat so far this week? Any responses? But thank you so much.
Okay. Well, I'm going to have to buy my district another copy because I'm enjoying it so much, and I highlighted it up. So I love it. We've actually had a couple little sidebar conversations here already. I'm so excited about what this can do for PD for our district. We were just talking about doing the ELL virtual, virtual as maybe some after school PDs in a Google Hangout type setting across district with our, with our 2 junior highs and things like that. But as far as the book goes, it's been very enlightening. I've loved it. I've got all kinds of ahas and just tweeting stuff, and I love the student perspective. I love your perspective. It's so applicable. It's been awesome.
Thank you for saying that. You know what I'm enjoying so much about that is everybody's saying your perspective. And I love that, and I appreciate that. But what we find is that it's everybody's perspective. We just didn't know how to apply it and how it would apply for these particular kiddos. So once, like Katie said, once you see, oh, that's that kiddo in my class, or Carlota is saying, well, I have, definitely worked with SIFE kids. I think that's why the bond is so strong in this community right now, is because everybody feels the way we feel. And I would never have, I have to thank SIFE Education and Anna Mattis, who's my co-author. I never would have been able to write the book because I didn't have all these ahas until I was thrown into a situation with a big group of kiddos that had these needs. So I'm thrilled and honored that you guys are plugging into it. But I knew when I met you that you have the same perspective. I mean, that's what's so great about it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what's cool is typically, and I'm sure Christy can echo this, you feel as an ESL teacher that you're the one and only. And I look back to the very first year that I taught when I was the one and only ESL teachers at 3 campuses in Spring ISD as a brand new teacher. And you feel like you're so alone, but knowing that other people out there and that, this connects us all, we're having the same challenges, but I think being a voice for our students is huge. I love that. I just love it.
Well, that's wonderful. And thanks for saying that. What do y'all, I bet you guys feel the same way, that we weren't even sure that this book was going to sell very many copies.
Oh my gosh. And to see it sell out, that was exciting.
Isn't it exciting?
You can't get it in Amazon anymore.
I know.
Well, you can get it now today. We shipped a whole bunch more books. And here's the thing about it to me is, we felt that exactly what Vienna just said. Yeah. SIFE teacher or one ESL teacher in a building sometimes. Now, never mind the fact that every teacher in that building support. It can be everybody's student,
Mhm.
but
Right.
the reality is it usually falls on one ESL teacher. But now I think when you read it and when we connect, we're like, okay, so if I solve issues for this child, I can serve any child, and everything in this book applies to every child.
Right. And I think that's my favorite thing that Carl says, it's good for all, necessary for some. And if everybody would teach with that in mind, oh my gosh, we could change the world.
We are changing the world.
I agree.
I know that sounds lofty.
I know, but it's so exciting.
I also think,
Amazing.
to me, what's also really appealing about a book like this is that, I mean, this is not a researcher in an ivory tower telling teachers what research says.
Right.
This is an educator saying, this is my story.
That's the
This
best
was
part.
my struggle. And I mean, it starts with Carol saying, I had no idea what to do. I was
Right.
challenged. And I feel like that speaks to teachers because, you know, it's all well and good to read a book that's written by somebody who's an expert in the field who can tell you what research says. And it's another thing to just hear a real teacher telling you what they've done, what they tried, that it's not perfect, and
Right.
it doesn't always work, and that you have to figure it out. But that's just, I mean, to me, that's so appealing, and I hope that becomes a wave kind of in educational texts, that they're from real people. And it's so appealing to me too that you can then go on Twitter and ask the author questions and talk about it and interact.
That's the
and
best
it's
part. That's the best part.
that it's not
Emily,
just
we can hear you.
I'm using my phone. I didn't think about that.
Yay. Look at you. That's your perseverance because you're SIFE.
It's in me, girl. It's in me.
No, that's fantastic. Talk a little bit, Emily, because we've dominated the conversation when you haven't been able to talk. So tell us a little bit about anything that first was introduce yourself. So introduce yourself real quick.
Well, I'm Emily Francis, ESL teacher here in Concord, North Carolina. I'm about to start my 6th year as an ESL teacher. I was a teacher assistant for 8 years in a first grade classroom. That's where I mainly learned all of my foundations of English language sitting in a first grade classroom. I was very fortunate to be with a teacher that loves newcomers and loves language learners. So she gave me a lot of opportunities to just be myself in the classroom. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
yes.
Yeah, good. You know, about this book, I am in love with this book. I really love, it's just that, seriously, if I can go back 20 something years when I, first came to this country, my teachers had that book on their desk, it would have made so much of a difference of how my education route ended up. I mean, I did it, but like your book says, grit. And it's hard to do it on your own. When students are just left on their own and do it independently is really hard. Parents, they have to work, they have to maintain kids, and it's hard to get involved and be engaged in the students' education. So a lot of us do it on their own, and it's really hard. But when you have teachers that have access to books like this, that have strategies and methods of how to support not just the student, but the family, and then come out with community involvement, that just makes a big difference for a student to be successful.
Huge. That's huge. I totally agree. I think the beauty of this, and I know we keep saying the same thing over and over again, but the fact that we can connect real time and talk, and so not only the author, that's what I was like when you had Andrea Hollingsfield as part of our book study on ELL Frontiers, like you guys, I was like all starstruck, and I couldn't believe she was interacting in our chat. And I put that, we were in the process of writing this book so I could take some of Andrea's ideas and cite her in the book at the time of things I was actually trying in my classroom because of Twitter. And now we have Emily, who's someone who's lived this journey. And let's just go ahead and take this opportunity to talk about the foreword. Because I didn't write the foreword, and Anna didn't write the foreword, Tan Nguyen wrote the foreword. So who wants to talk about that? because that was one of the questions for our book study is, what is his story? What is his forward? How would you respond to it?
I was just interested because honestly, until I read it, I had no idea. I mean, you connect, like we connect on Twitter, and we had conversations about ELL Chat Book Club, but I didn't know, you don't truly know the person. I had no idea that was his backstory.
You founded this with him.
Yeah, and I didn't know that. And so it just, again, speaks to the importance of knowing somebody's story, because you can, I mean, you can make assumptions about any student, any family, and until you truly hear what they've been through and what has shaped that person who's sitting in front of you, you don't know. And I thought that was incredible. And I think it's so admirable that a backstory like that transpires to an accomplished educator who is multilingual and just, a phenomenal educator who's now taking that story and turning it into a passion for educating ELLs.
Him and Emily, both, yeah, right. So, but the foreword that Ton wrote, and if you don't have the book, I keep saying you don't need the book to connect with all of this. I'll have in the show notes how you can listen to him tell his story. It's called the Roland Chidiac Connects podcast. It's out of Canada, and Roland interviewed Ton just last month, and Ton tells his whole story. He starts by saying, we were the last of the boat people that left Vietnam, and they were sinking and they were saved. And then he gets to the United States. I'm not doing it justice at all, but he gets to the United States. And even though he can go in at kindergarten, but this was after they were in a refugee camp for a while, and he can go in kindergarten, his older brothers and sisters experienced some interrupted formal education. So amazing, right? Amazing that we've all been following this guy. He is probably in the top 3 people on Twitter that you should follow if you are an ESL. Larry Ferlazzo right there is Ton right with him, because the things he puts out to support teachers in infographics and his articles are just phenomenal. But you're right. I had no idea either.
And that point about how, even within one family, the educational experience for the youngest child versus older brothers and sisters was very different, because he came in at kindergarten, but older brothers and sisters missed years. And that's so interesting that within that same family, their experiences could have been so vastly different. And I'm curious to know more about the outcomes for his siblings, of where they are now and what they're doing.
That's a great point. Who else? Anybody else want to chime in on the foreword? Because it was so beautifully written.
It was.
I couldn't have asked for a better, a better foreword for this book. Amazing. Yes. We're so indebted to him. He's going to be in Boston at the end of July, at the end of this month, or he's in Boston right now, and I'm going to be there for a week. So we're going to tweet y'all some pictures. You know how you're all jealous when people in your PLN meet in real life? I'm going to be tweeting y'all a bunch of pictures. So yeah. Emily, what did you think about the foreword?
It was definitely the right person to do that. Not only he has the background, he lays out the foundation of why this book is so important. And like he says, there are so many books out there that can support teachers with ELLs, but just to focus on SIFE students is just, you need so many different strategies and methods to deal with students that other books are useful. Yes, like the SIFE model. I agree, they're wonderful books. However, there's just different ways, you got to deal with what they went through. Look at all the stuff that Tan said he had to go through. If a teacher is not aware of those circumstances, you don't provide the appropriate support for the student.
So one of the reasons why I've always really enjoyed teaching English language learners is because of that challenge. And I think everybody's always asked me, like, oh, wouldn't it just be nice if you had some kind of curriculum or set and you could use it with all your students? And that doesn't always happen. That doesn't happen with SIFE students. And I feel like now I finally have the research and information to back that up. This is why it doesn't work, because each student, you don't know where they're coming from. You don't know what they went through before they got here. And that's why you always have to keep that in mind and adjust your instruction. And that's definitely, I like that challenge as a teacher, learning where your students are from and what's going to work for them and what's not, and, you know, developing something for them. But it's never, this field is never going to be, here's everything you need, and that's it. It's never going to be that way. And that's because of students like Carol's and like what we've had in our classroom that go back and forth between their home countries or have experienced something not school before they came to us.
Mm-hmm. But there are situations, and that's why I love kind of the topic of the presentation I did, because there are situations where teachers do have their curriculum, and that's their, you know, that's what they're delivering. And a lot of elementary classrooms, it is a prescribed commercial program. And there needs to be that mindset that the Carlota just described, that you have to teach your students. You can't just teach what's there. And there are so many teachers who are held accountable to, this is what the district has purchased, therefore, this is what you should be teaching with fidelity. And I think that, you know, fidelity is fidelity, but I always am such a supporter that you have to be that negotiator, because, you know, to just implement it as is, you're missing those connections and making those bridges with students. And that's why I love how we just finished reading Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain and now Boosting Achievement, because there's such a bridge between those two books that, you know, we just read about the importance of relationships. And that's such a paramount concept within culturally responsive pedagogy, is relationships. And in order to reach these students, you have to have that relationship, or else you don't have access to them opening up. I mean, as Carol talked about, the students were resistant and aggressive and angry because they've been through so much that we can't even imagine. And until you build that trust, and until you know, kind of negotiate a relationship with them where they're willing to kind of open up and show their true self, you're not able to make those instructional changes and decisions based on them, because you don't know them. So it's that relationship piece is that first layer, and then you can take what you know and make those instructional choices to make sure that you're reaching those students. And I think that, you know, as teachers who are ELL teachers or ELD teachers, we have kind of that knowledge base and that flexibility, but this is such a key book for content teachers and classroom teachers who kind of have that expectation of, this is what needs to be delivered. But then I have the student who kind of doesn't fit, or who is just, there's different needs involved, and kind of that, how do you negotiate that? How do you make sure that you're meeting that? And it's knowing that student. What's their story? How can you make those connections between what they've been through and what they've experienced and the content? Or even how can you ask them to be part of the classroom discussion in a way that makes them feel comfortable and not put on the spot, or not, you know, scared or defensive? There's just so much groundwork that needs to be done to make sure that SIFE students are part of the classroom community, and that they have a comfort level to even engage in what you're doing. I mean, there's so many layers. It's really interesting.
There are so many layers. I want to take what you said, because it's so profound. I think you're so right. There's for every single one of us, every single SIFE student's going to be different, and every group is going to be different. That's why I loved your presentation also, because I've got a prescribed curriculum, which most teachers know I'm going to have to tweak that. I mean, if I'm doing things the way it's going to be important, I'm going to have to tweak it based on who's sitting in front of me. And so this student is not one that you say palms up. A lot of people, well, but you know, they can't read. They don't have literacy in their native language. You know, all of that goes away once, and there are so many layers, but it's not as hard as we're making it. That's what I love about the book, is that it was super challenging. And in the intro, people are like, oh my God, what a nightmare she was going through. But not this year. This is my second year. And everything I learned last year, it was like being a first-year teacher again. Everything I learned last year, and I'm still learning, of course, but it's not as hard as you think. It's like what Katie says, once you connect and start making relationships, the rest of it, it starts to just kind of appear before you. You start thinking in this way, so it's easier to include the student. And then the the outcome of that is that his literacy goes faster because he's more engaged, and it all just, the snowball goes in the right direction, I feel like. And I want to ask Vienna in Waxahachie, Vienna, and all of you guys in Waxahachie, because I think the rest of us are ESL or ELD teachers specifically, but I think you guys over at Starbucks in Waxahachie, y'all might have a lens, a bigger district lens, are part of the ESL department. How do you respond to content teachers and inclusion of these SIFE or kids with interrupted formal education, or does the book have any implications for you for that? I mean, you have to unmute your mic though, I think. You're muted though still. No, we still can't hear you.
Okay, how about now? There we go.
Got you.
Okay.
And Starbucks quieted down.
I think it did a lot. Our table left. Wow, that was a huge question with lots of parts.
One part of it.
One part at a time. Okay. We were actually just talking about that because you know, of course, I try to, well, there's no way to do half and half, but because we have a dual language model as well as ESL pre-K through 12, you know, we have some students with interrupted education, but we haven't had refugees. So that's something that, or at least they're not documented, you know, per se with their papers and stuff. So anyway, but I think the implications are just, gosh, that's on such a huge level with classroom teachers, because our ESL, you know, we've got Christy, who is the lead ESL teacher at one of my junior highs, and we have another lead ESL at the other one, but the majority of their education falls on the classroom teacher, you know, and so I feel like, you know, just having them realize the grit and determination that our students have. I love that word grit. And so that really resonated with me, letting them realize that yes, they may have interrupted education, but they have their strengths as well, and being able to find those strengths and build upon those. And so I love the part where you were actually advocating, you know, the student was advocating for himself for a harder algebra class, but it took you as well, you know, really everybody listening to his voice that, yes, I'm ready for more, and challenging our kids instead of watering it down.
Yeah, huge. I think we're going to, that grit part, which is like, I don't think it's next week. I think it's the week after.
Oh, sorry.
No. I love it. There are people doing book snaps of page 20 and this and that.
Yes.
I think that's fantastic because really we're trying to process whatever part of the book you're going through. So if you jump, I mean, if people jump ahead and put things on the Padlet, that's fine. That's very cool because it's going to be there for us when we get to that part. But there's a ton of people talking about grit this week in the book chat. And there's actually people disputing grit out there as being so important in education. Like in education, we glom onto something, and right now, grit is like fashionable.
Let you talk. Okay. So, whatever. I'm going to let Christy talk for just a minute.
Go ahead, Christy.
Okay. Hi. Am I here?
Hey, Christy.
Okay. Hi.
You're there.
Starbucks.
That's okay. We can't see you, but we can hear you. That's all that really matters. You're fine.
Okay. Hi. I've noticed that like we have a student that we didn't realize had such huge language gaps and interrupted learning. And he struggled with phonics and reading, but when we started giving him the tools, he started really succeeding. And it was interesting because there was a teacher who had their car was broken down. I think that they had a flat tire. And so he immediately jumped out of his car, went and changed it. And so this is a kid who's used to hard work, has lots of real life skills that we discredit. And then when we started valuing him and his strengths and the things that he knew, he really started flourishing this year. And another issue that we have oftentimes in the secondary level is that teachers are so star driven and focused on performance. And it's so hard because you have these kids who have language gaps and we need to back up and really address the things that they're missing. Yes. But it's like jumping on a speeding train. Yeah. And that's our struggle.
I hear you and I feel that, and I did feel that. I can't wait till we get to those parts of the book. And this was part of our questions this week. what part of the book are you most looking forward to? You know, look at the table of contents. So I love that people are saying, you know, this part about grit, this part about practical. There's definitely a part in the book about what do you do with state assessed classes in these kiddos in these classes. And I just can't wait to get to that, because I feel like I learned some stuff, but what everybody's bringing to the table is amplifying it so much. And it's so much deeper and so much more cool. So I can't wait to hear when we really read those chapters and I reread them and we talk about it. It's going to be fantastic. I'm telling you.
I am so excited.
It is so exciting. It's so exciting because this is what we've been waiting for. I really feel like this is what we've been waiting for in education as ESL advocates, is everybody, because before everybody feels like, yes, they can, because we all see the kid jump out of the car and do, you know, and show us his talents. And you just wish the rest of the world would see that. Well, now the rest of the world's going to see that. And I think that's great. I just think that's great. I think we're coming.
Funds of knowledge. It's that concept of funds of knowledge that, you know, it's not just background knowledge. It's not just, well, what do they know about whatever we happen to be reading about or talking about. It's those funds of knowledge that are critical to their family, that have kind of been passed down or that they've been exposed to, that serve them for kind of life skills. And you don't necessarily know that. But that's incredible. That's a situation where he was able to step in and help a teacher. That's phenomenal. And that might be a career path for him, you know,
Right.
and knowing that that's an interest and a talent might put him on a path or a certain trajectory of learning where, like, you know, math concepts or science concepts can be connected to that particular skill and area of interest in order to kind of really hone what he's good at.
And you know what's really going to blow your mind? Because I agree. And this is profound enough, right? This is profound for all of us to go, wow, if all teachers just played on those strengths to include that child, we're kind of getting away from the pobrecito mentality that he can't do anything. That's one thing. That's big enough. But the idea that these students can deepen the learning of the entire class and have them do better on STAR, because example, Lydia lived near an active volcano. And so she's in the class talking about what magma really looks like and what it really feels like when that starts to happen. And, you know, not only that, there were instances where my whole class got a question correct on a STAR review that other kiddos didn't because of the distractors and things. But these guys have intimate knowledge about some of our science concepts, and they're very critical thinkers because, well, we're you know, we'll go into that more in the book, but it's taking those funds of knowledge, like Katie just said, and not watering it down, like Vienna was saying, and amplifying it and saying, how do we accelerate their achievement? Because we're honestly honoring what they bring, because I want my son in that class. He's going to learn deeper and better the math, the science, the everything, because of the conversations that are happening. That's perspective we don't have. That kiddo brings.
It'd be interesting to kind of survey teachers or pose the question on Twitter about what teachers do to kind of make that avenue for sharing. Like, how do you uncover those stories? Like, once you have the relationship and you have the trust and the student is willing to share, what is it? Is it a dialogue journal? I found that useful with one of my students who is from India, that she would write me lots of things about her kind of personal life in that dialogue journal, and I would write back. And for my kindergartners, I always did my personalized alphabet, which I thought was such a fun way, and the parents filled it out, but it was just, you know, for every letter of the alphabet, what's one word that's meaningful to you or your family? And it was cool to find out things about them that they could find connections. You know, it was like, oh, well, so-and-so likes this and this student does too. And I would call them out. I would just go through, if we're doing letter B for that week, I would say, you know, so-and-so's B word is bike. So-and-so's B word is baseball. So-and-so's B word is, you know, maybe it was a city or a state or something where they were born, whatever it might be. And it was a way to kind of see how we're alike, how we're different, and to find out things about families that you wouldn't otherwise know. And you could really see what's important to them by the words that they chose to put down. And I would always do my own too. What are my words? And, you know, it reveals who my children are and where I went to college and where I grew up and all those kinds of things. And it really, you know, that they're conversation starters. Then for the student who was a beginner speaker who didn't really talk, I could have that avenue to say, oh, you know, I see that you like fishing with your grandpa. Tell me, did you do that this weekend? Tell me more. And it's that avenue to open up. But I would love to know kind of K all the way on up what teachers do to elicit those stories and find out that information, because that's so important too. That's not always easy to do.
Put it on Twitter. We will all respond. That would be a great chain to, to follow, because that's, you know, there's other avenues too to share these kind of things. You know, what's very cool is I want to make a plug for Carlota, who is going to start our Flipgrid. And if you've never used Flipgrid, let me tell you right now, it's the easiest thing in the world. She's just going to open a Flipgrid. It's just a grid of boxes, and I'm not explaining it well. Carlota, why don't you say real quick, because we're about up on time. We're right about noon right now. So if you'll tell us, that's, you know, we have the Padlet. Thank you, Emily, because you really don't need the book. There's so many book snaps that you can read the whole first part. And I think that's great. And then we have Twitter, of course. And please do use the hashtag even when you're responding to people, because otherwise the group doesn't see your response to questions. So ELL_chat_BK club. And then Carlota, if you will, and I'll also put in the show notes how you can see an overview of all of this on a landing page. And then Carlota, if you want to tell us about the Flipgrid, that's going to be very cool too.
Yeah, so I'm gonna start a Flipgrid for ELL Chat Book Club, and I'm finding it really hard just to reflect on some of these things in 142 characters on Twitter. And I'm pretty sure Sarah sent me like 15 Twitters this morning because she was just telling me like a story, basically. And it was very valuable, Sarah. Thank you so much for that. But, you know, I've just found myself a lot of times like, oh, it'd be really cool to just do like a video reflection of this topic. So I have already put it together. And then what we'll do is we'll tweet it out, because I believe there'll be like a code that you'll need to put in to get to the Flipgrid. And I only have the free version. So your your videos can't be longer than 1 minute and 30 seconds, which I think is plenty. But you'll be able to view everybody else's videos and respond back to them on their video reflections.
So we're going to do, or is it a different Flipgrid each week, or one Flipgrid and it's got like week 1 reflections at the end of the week plus whatever you want to say?
Yeah, so I'm going to do it. I started to do it, and I was going to do it on week 1, and then I'll just have kind of some prompting questions to help teachers reflect on the material from the previous week. So, so this next week we'll just reflect on on the book, on what you read, but also maybe reflecting on what you're learning from your peers on Twitter through this chat, or about SIFE students through Twitter on our chat.
So everybody can do what we just did in the last hour. You just got to condense it down. But the cool thing is we'll be able to see each other's and hear each other's, and it's very easy to do that. I think you're right. We need more than one method or mode of connecting. And so I think that'll be great. I hope everybody does it. And these are just more things out there. I know this speaks to Vienna and your group. What a district can use on their own without us, without the chat, without, you know, what can you replicate in your own district to offer your teachers a personalized learning opportunity? We're going to have all the questions after a few weeks. We're going to have examples of the videos. They don't have to use ours. But you said you want to do Google Hangouts district-wide. Well, here's what one looks like. It's not perfect, but these people on July 12th got together and talked about everything, and it was great. And then, you know, we'll have a lot of examples. The Flipgrid will be another one. The Padlet will be another one. I think it's a great example of how people with any text or any topic can come in and offer this to their teachers easily. And Virtuel is another example of that, of resources that are available because of the culture of sharing on Twitter and the culture of just having open source information out there.
It's also a great connection back to Andrea's book, ELL Frontiers, about the many, many ways that you can collaborate virtually.
Absolutely. We were examples for the kids.
Because that's something that we're kind of grappling with in our district, and as we're wanting to do more co-teaching, about the meeting time is a barrier for some teachers. And so what can we do digitally? And these are all great options to be able to kind of have these conversations remotely in convenient ways, but yet still collaborate so that we can be effective co-teachers.
And some of us were a little scared of some of them before. So I think we're okay now with all of that, right? Does anybody want any closing thoughts?
As long as the sound works, I guess we're good.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I think is inspiring to teachers is, so what? It's not going to be perfect. It doesn't need to be perfect. And we're never going to know more tech than the kids. We never will. So don't worry about it. Just throw yourself out there and the kids can help you get your tech together. And if not, you know, what's the worst thing that can happen? Virtual GIF is somebody to follow out of Canada. Her name is Jennifer Giffen, and she does a virtual book study and a podcast and a YouTube. And I was just floored by it. I was like, we can do that. We can try that. What's the worst thing that can happen? And she was doing Teach Like a Pirate, and Dave Burgess came into the chat with them, the video. I mean, it's just like, what? I mean, that's so phenomenal. Anyway, okay. Anybody have any closing thoughts or anything you want to say before we wrap it up? We're a little bit over an hour, but we'll wrap up.
This was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. Okay, well, thank you guys so much. We'll see everybody over on the Twitter sphere, right? And definitely plug in with us. I'm going to go back right now and put some links in the description of this video. So again, you can join anytime over the 5 weeks. We need your voice. We need your perspective and your positive mindset to help it spread. Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye.